Very pleased not to be joined here at Blogging the Boys by the one and only, the dashing, the debonair, internationally famous, galactically famous from FTN Fantasy. It is Aaron Schatz. Aaron, thank you so much for taking the time to join us once again.
Always good to be here, my friend. Hello.
How often are you referred to as debonair?
Not that often. Mostly by my girlfriend, I hope.
I mean, if that's the way you're getting referred to it as, I think you're doing all right for yourself. It is a very exciting time for you, Aaron. We're recording this conversation on Tuesday, July 16th, and I saw this morning when I fired up my podcast app that you sat down with Kevin Clark on This Is Football, making the rounds for the Almanac. It is, do you get like anxiety this time of year, or maybe you experience relief because it's finally out?
More relief than anxiety. I mean, this is our 20th preseason book, so I have done this media tour numerous times. I'm very used to it, but it does feel good to have it done, especially because we got it out earlier than ever this year, which is the goal. And we were able to make that happen with my staff of writers. It was really great. Everybody really stepped up this year. So it's definitely not anxiety, but it's relief. I wish I had a physical copy to show you, but it just came out. The physical copies just came out, so they haven't been shipped to me yet. It's got Travis Kelce on the cover. It's something like 460 pages. It's got all of our previews of every team, all the advanced stats from last year, all the fantasy football projections. Everything's in there.
FTNfantasy.com should be everybody's home and hub for all things all the time in general. But that URL /almanac is how you can get this. You mentioned the physical copy. You obviously can order that, or you can get a digital copy. That's the one that I've been poring over as of late. It is a must-have. You mentioned 20 years. You strike me as somebody who, like me, enjoyed the old school NFL almanacs that used to come out. This is that souped up,
This is based really much more on baseball prospectus and the Bill James baseball abstract. That's the kind of book that I was trying to do here. And so something that people would feel was just, you couldn't live without it every year. Right. You had to have it every preseason. That's the way Bill James was when I was a kid. And so that's the way we feel like the FTN Almanac is now.
Well, congratulations on number 20. It delivers well over expectations, as you guys always do. I want to get into a few things, obviously, as they relate to the Cowboys, as I'm sure you're not surprised. Now, you, correct me if I'm wrong, did not write the essay for the Cowboys. Mike Tanier wrote it.
No, I didn't write any of the team chapters. Okay. I do all the stats. I do all the projections. I edit it, so my voice is sort of in every chapter. But Mike Tanier did the Dallas chapter. He did all the NFC East chapters this year, as well as the AFC West.
Now, where your almanac differs from the NFL almanac, I know that wasn't your inspiration, is it has, as the great around the NFL crew used to say, a touch of mirth, I would say. And there is some of that sprinkled throughout here. The opening line from Mike in your Dallas Cowboys chapter is, despite the sudden indifference and stubborn negligence of Jerry Jones, the Dallas Cowboys remain a very good football team. I do think that this properly encapsulates how we've gotten here. You and I have spoken a few times this offseason already. My perspective as somebody who lives in Dallas Cowboys world is that the Jerry Jones of it all gets amplified a bit. I have to imagine, as somebody who relies on data, that probably gets annoying. I mean, because the narrative of Jerry,
it is what it is. Okay. Mm-hmm. So first of all, do you agree with me? I think Stephen Jones is the one making the GM decisions at this point for the most part, not Jerry.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, Jerry's quotes make the rounds, but the idea that we're charging him with the responsibility for these things is a little bit.
And Stephen's been pretty good.
I much to my own chagrin, I would admit that that's fair. I would offer it's a brain trust of Stephen, Will McClay, and a variety of other people. Maybe Jerry sits on these meetings as well. But yeah, the idea that Jerry is driving the boat is far-fetched in my opinion.
But I think the reason why, first of all, Jerry Jones, he's got that larger-than-life persona. Mm-hmm. But right now, why he comes into play is because he is the money man. And let's be honest, the biggest issue right now with the Dallas Cowboys is the money and getting those three guys signed: Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons. And so I think that's why there might be even more attention on Jerry now than even usual.
It's been a unique offseason in that sense, in that and I don't say this about you all, but the analysis nationally has just been they need to sign these guys, right? Like that's the story. Like it's
No,
one
you
of
can
them.
tell. You can say that that's been our thing too. I mean,
But
we when we talk about the NFC East, we talk about how Dallas needs to sign these guys. I'm not any different than anyone else.
it's so simplistic though, you know what I mean? And I would, I have to imagine it must be fascinating to dive into the world of Kyle Shanahan, you know what I mean? And it must be exhaustive research or whatever the case may be, when you're analyzing and assessing the 49ers or the Ravens or the Bills or whoever. Whereas the Cowboys, it's, well, they still haven't done this. We've been saying this for 6 months now and it hasn't happened. So we'll just, we're going to bust out the thesaurus and try to figure out a way to say it in a way that we haven't yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's two driving stories about the Cowboys. One is sign the guys, and the other is the playoff failures.
Right.
And that for some people, that leads them to project less from the Cowboys in the regular season, which makes no sense to me, even if you believe, in fact, in particular, if you believe there's something special about their playoff failures and that it's not just random variance, then you should believe they're going to be really, really good in the regular season again, because that's not the playoffs. Like, this is a team that's good in the regular season every year. What is it? 3 straight years of 12 wins. Like, all the talent is still there that was there last year. It's why would you, except for Tyron Smith, why would you, I guess, except for the offensive line in general, Biotish, and why would you think they're going to suddenly have problems in the regular season? Like, they're likely to have another good regular season.
I think the decay of the offseason just lives in your head. You know what I'm saying? And so it just kind of works and works and works. And that's why, you look, whatever sports book you prefer, their projected win total over under is something like 10.5. And I mean, even if you think that they'll regress.
Sounds about right. That sounds great. That sounds good. But I think there are some people who talk about them negatively in a way that doesn't reflect how they've actually played for the last 3 years.
And so this pivots me, Mike, again, touch of mirth is putting it lightly, throughout the essay regarding the Cowboys. I've shifted in terms of my primary defense regarding the Cowboys. It used to be Dak Prescott. I think enough people nationally recognize that Dak is very, very, very good. You still have the, occasional raw egg out there that's going to say whatever they want, but I feel like we've won in that sense. Enough intellectual people have accepted reality here. I don't know that I want to fight for Mike McCarthy, and I've talked to you about this before, but there is something here. And Mike takes, some Mike Tenier, to be clear, takes some fun, cheeky shots at McCarthy. I do think that we are losing the plot on McCarthy a little bit. I feel like we conveniently lump so many things that he has been a part of to everyone else. And I don't mean to imply that Aaron Rodgers doesn't deserve an enormous amount of credit for what happened in Green Bay. But if we're going to give Aaron Rodgers that level of credit, then why don't we give Dak Prescott that level of credit? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's something about Mike McCarthy here that seems to be not only important, but critical to what has happened over the course of the last 3 years, to your point.
Yes, there are things to criticize McCarthy for, but when you look at the Cowboys' record over the last 3 years, it's hard not to say that McCarthy has been a good coach, not a great coach. Maybe a league average coach, but not a bad one. Certainly. I mean, there are things to criticize, but there are things to like about him too. And what they've done, the thing is, if you want to get over the hump and you ask what, other than a random variation and just having a good playoff, what changes can you make that will get the team over the hump? I think the most obvious one is the coach, simply because you're not going to change the quarterback. You don't want to get rid of Lamb. You don't want to get rid of Parsons. Like, there are little changes you can make at certain positions and do certain things in certain places. But the biggest overall change that looks like you could make would be the coach. The question is, who would come in and be better?
Right. Who would, especially
you would
when
taking a chance. What you would end up doing is taking a chance.
He's been, McCarthy,
young line
better than any of his predecessors in terms of the drought that the Cowboys are in. Now, that's not saying much. Nobody's saying hang a banner or anything like that. But I mean, as far as the drought that the Cowboys are in, he has been by far the most successful coach. And I wanted to ask you, do you recall the narrative surrounding the Cowboys last year. The big thing this year was the all-in. That was the line that everybody, kind of latched onto. But do you remember what Mike McCarthy said again an offseason ago that everybody hung on to and assumed was going to be the mantra of what they did?
I don't exactly remember what was last year's mantra.
He said at the combine that they wanted to run the ball, and that obviously they were talking about Kellen Moore's departure, and he had that line about how.
Now I do remember,
yeah.
and I don't think they ended up with a particularly high run-pass ratio. In fact, they were in the first half of games, they were 29th in run-pass ratio, and I think I even said at the time, this sounds like Coach BS.
Right. And what made it worse was in talking about Kellen, he said that he had been where Kellen was as an offensive coordinator and that, he wanted to light up the scoreboard. But he said that now as a head coach, he wanted to win football games. And again, to your point, everybody kind of parsed that as coach speak. But this is also from your chapter, obviously, on the Cowboys, that the Cowboys ran significantly less often than the year before, particularly in short yardage situations. Some of that you could lump up to maybe not having Zeke, and they obviously felt he was so precious they had to bring back, whatever the case may be. But the reality is it was a crock of BS that they were going to run the ball. But everybody, again, and I'm sure you now all of a sudden recall, that was all anybody believed, was that they were going to run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. So if you had
I don't know about believed,
well,
but I would say talked about. Yeah,
that's fair. So then if you had to parse through the lens of data and narrative, because you've kind of danced in both worlds throughout your career, what is that thing this year for the Cowboys? Like, what is the thing that we're all talking about that is probably going to wind up a crock of BS relative to who they are?
The fact that they didn't sign free agents. The fact is, signing veteran free agents from other teams doesn't move the needle as much as the coverage that we give it.
Right.
Now, I think there is something to be said about the Cowboys that they also did not re-sign their own free agents,
right,
and they let people leave. And if you look at it, and we talk about the chapter, they have been near the top of the league in the sort of net loss of, or not net loss, but lowest net addition of salary in the offseason from free agents for a couple of years now. Teams that are at the bottom of the league in net addition from free agents do tend to do a little bit worse. But my problem with that is less the lack of bringing in and more the question about how many guys that they let leave. But I think that the lack of, especially running back, by the way, I'm an analytics guy, right?
Yeah.
Running backs are not as important. Like, what's important is the blocking. Like, I think that, what's the name of the center? Hoffman. I think Hoffman is probably more important to the running game, success or failure, than Zeke or Rico Dowdle.
To your point, I mean, it could be Brock Hoffman, or it could be, and the chapter discusses this, Cooper Beebe, the team's third round selection at Kansas State.
Whichever of those guys it is, right? That is a big role in the running game. I think that's more important than who the running back is.
I think that you're right that it's the free agency thing that we might sit back and laugh. But to your point, that, and I don't mean to just keep saying the chapter, but you're here for the chapter. It's amazing. The chapter notes that the Indianapolis Colts and Kansas City Chiefs are among the Cowboys in the category you kind of detailed right there, except that the Colts and Chiefs both prioritize bringing back Michael Pittman Jr. and Chris Jones, and But I would offer, and again, I have a lot of fun criticizing the Cowboys, don't get me wrong, but who's that guy? You know what I mean? Like, they let Tyron Smith walk, and that feels big, but he also hasn't played a full season since 2015. Maybe
it's also interesting. Gilmore has yet to be signed by anybody. Right. So we see that as one of their larger losses, but nobody's picked him up.
Mm-hmm.
I think Biotish is a loss. I think you can't expect either an undrafted second-year guy or a third-round rookie to be as good as what Biotish has been at center. Not like he's been, Creed Humphrey or anything, but, he's been good.
Right. I think, to kind of wrap, I think that their offseason happened at a tumultuous time on the heels of a tumultuous playoff loss, and it was exacerbated by Jerry's all-in comment. I mean, obviously I can't prove this, but I believe that if he doesn't say those two specific words, it doesn't feel as big as it is, because that just became this punching bag sort of line. And I would offer that the spotlight of who they are, the history of what they have, the shadow that they're living in and that they're fighting against, again, exacerbates everything else. If the same circumstances existed, and then we were talking about, I would say the Buffalo Bills, because they've kind of done that, right? They've kind of emerged from their own shadow. We would give them a lot more credit. And not to say that Josh Allen and Sean McDermott don't deserve credit, rightfully so. So is that an opinion that you share, that maybe some of this is just the Cowboys of it all that makes it feel bigger, even though that's something that they benefit from all the time?
I think there's a little bit of that. Look, the fact is that when you have a dynasty, it prevents other teams from winning.
Mm-hmm.
So the NFL is filled right now with teams that can't get over the hump because Kansas City and to a lesser extent San Francisco keep getting over the hump instead of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's a lot like the NBA in the 90s.
Right.
Where Barkley never won a title and Malone never won a title because Jordan won 6, and the years he didn't win it, it was Olajuwon and the Houston Rockets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what you have now is, why can't Dallas get over the hump? Why can't Buffalo get over the hump? When is Detroit going to get over the hump? When is Miami going to get over the hump? Like, you have a lot of these teams that have been good now for 2, 3, 4 years and can't get over because Kansas City and San Francisco keep winning every year. So in that way, Dallas is in the same place that Buffalo is in, and the same place that Miami is in. And you know, I'll say the same thing that I said last year, even though it didn't prove to be true last year. Baltimore is also in that place,
right?
Which is that history is filled with teams that were not good enough to win in the playoffs until the year they finally did. The 2006 Colts are the example that I always give, but also the Broncos, you know, all those years in the mid-90s.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there is a good chance that instead of Kansas City winning 3 in a row, what we're going to see is one of these teams will finally get over the hump. I mean, even if San Francisco wins it all, people will see that as getting over the hump because they still haven't won a Super Bowl.
Right. I mean, just to live in the moment, the Boston Celtics are kind of that example, right? Like, couldn't get over the hump, ran into the Warriors, you know, the last time they made it. They get there, and even if they never get another one, they got over the hump.
Lost to Miami
right.
in the conference finals in a way that absolutely looked like the Celtics just can't do it in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And the next year they won it all.
And they won it all in supremely dominant fashion. And it becomes this, like, they're one of the greatest teams of all time, and that washes away everything else. History is written by the winners in that respect. But
right.
FTN...
Although I mean no disrespect to Dallas, if there's a team that's going to do that this year, that's going to get over the hump by dominating from wire to wire, it's probably San Francisco.
Believe me, as a Cowboys fan, I know that full well. But I mentioned that history is written by the winners. Your almanac is written by you, yourself, Mike Tenier, your fantastic staff. FTNFantasy.com/almanac is how people can get it. Congratulations again, Aaron, on another trip around the sun for the almanac. It is incredible. As always, looking forward to FTNFantasy.com and all the content you will produce.
Yes, I'll remind everybody, we have all kinds of really good fantasy projections, DFS projections, optimizer programs. We have a stats hub that's coming out that's going to be able to have DVOA by charting categories in the middle of the season, like who's the best on go routes. Like in week 8, you'll be able to figure this stuff all out with an FTN fantasy subscription. Plus, if you get an FTN fantasy subscription, you get all that and the almanac half off. So check out what's available to you with the whole FTN fantasy subscription. And then you get the almanac half off too.
Last one as you get out of here, Aaron. What's a non-football thing you've enjoyed this offseason? Because all I ever talk to you about is football.
Yakuza 0.
Okay. What a great way to walk it off.
I finished Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, and then I went back to play older Yakuza games, and I'm playing Yakuza 0, and I play it for like 2 hours a day, and it's freaking awesome.
That is what of all the answers I could have predicted, that would not have been it. On the subject of games, I hope you're dabbling in the new college football game. That's the talk.
Not yet. No, I would need to get a Series X.
Well, you know what?
I need to get a Series X to play college football. So I'm trying to decide whether I want to do it.
Let's up the let's just get like 5 million more FTN fantasy subscriptions. You know what I mean? Let's put all those coins in your pocket.
Get me a little bit of a bonus. I'll get myself the Series X.
Aaron, thanks so much for hanging out. Can't wait to talk to you again.
All right, talk to you later.